The countdown has struck zero in the realm of British politics, unleashing a whirlwind of chaos that no one anticipated. Keir Starmer's Labour Party has imploded in a spectacle that has captivated and shocked the nation. A staggering 43 MPs have walked out in unison, triggering a political explosion that has left Westminster reeling. At the center of this maelstrom lies a scandal so colossal, so incomprehensible that even Starmer's staunchest supporters have turned their backs on him. A staggering sum of £22 billion has seemingly disappeared into the abyss of clandestine contracts, dubious firms, and covert dealings. What had been whispered in the darkened corridors for weeks has erupted into full-blown insurrection, rocking the foundations of Labour and prompting the public to ask a singular, chilling question. How did it come to this? The saga didn't begin with a single act of defiance, but rather with an overwhelming deluge of resignations and statements cascading from Labour's front bench like a tidal wave. Initially, observers in Westminster brushed it off as mere political theatrics, an ordinary reshuffle, routine disputes, the typical turbulence of political life. But this time, something felt undeniably different. The timing was uncanny, the coordination razor-sharp, and the sheer volume of resignations overwhelming. It quickly became apparent that this was no ordinary reshuffle. This was insurrection. By the early hours, social media was ablaze with breaking news. News tickers flashed one shocking announcement after another. Labour front bench resignation. Another MP steps down. The shadow cabinet lay in ruins. Each new headline struck like a hammer, reverberating through the nation. By noon, the tally had reached 43 elected representatives, many of them prominent figures and longtime allies, who could no longer stand behind the man they once championed. And they didn't depart quietly. Each resignation was accompanied by evidence. Hard documents, leaked memos, and financial trails that wove a damning narrative. This was no ordinary political maneuver. This was exposure. At the core of their allegations was a figure so staggering, it rattled the country. £22 billion, a sum not attributed to a clerical error or a budgeting mishap. According to the departing MPs, it represented a calculated effort to channel funds into the hands of firms intimately connected to Starmer's advisors and benefactors. These companies, masked behind polished facades, allegedly received vast payments for services that were either non-existent or grossly inflated. Consultancies paid billions without producing a single report, while outreach firms delivered nothing but excuses. Each resignation letter painted a grim portrait of deception, betrayal, and a leadership that seemed more invested in shielding insiders than serving the public. The first public blow landed when the Shadow Home Secretary addressed the cameras, her voice shaking but her message clear. This is not leadership. This is betrayal. She recounted how efforts to raise questions were met with silence, intimidation, and threats of deselection. Shortly thereafter, the Shadow Chancellor made her own declaration, revealing that she had faced obstructions in her attempts to uncover the truth. "We were told to think of unity," she stated. "But unity cannot mean covering up corruption." These were not just backbench dissenters. These were senior figures at the heart of Labour's leadership. Once they chose to leave, the dominoes began to tumble with astonishing speed. Outside Parliament, the fallout was immediate. Constituency Labour Party branches began posting furious statements online demanding Starmer's resignation. Grassroots members, ordinary citizens who had spent years campaigning and advocating for the party, felt their loyalty had been shattered. Trade unions, the backbone of Labour's funding, declared they would suspend donations until a full investigation was undertaken. The hashtags #LabourCollapse and #StarmerOut surged to the forefront of social media, echoing the outrage from every corner of the nation. Even as the walls began to crumble, Starmer's team scrambled to maintain some semblance of control. His communications unit issued frantic statements claiming that the documents had been misinterpreted and that the contracts were both lawful and legitimate. They branded the situation as a mere routine restructuring, nothing more than the usual political machinations. However, the public was not swayed. The evidence was too compelling, the resignations too numerous, the outrage too palpable. As tensions simmered in Parliament, emergency meetings devolved into shouting matches and walkouts. Backbenchers who had once defended Starmer stormed out, visibly enraged. A letter signed by all 43 resigning MPs landed on the chief whip's desk, unambiguously stating that Keir Starmer no longer commands the moral or political authority to lead the Labour Party. It was a death sentence for his leadership, penned not by adversaries but by his own team. As night fell, the chaos spilled into the streets. Crowds gathered outside Parliament, brandishing signs that read, "Not in our name, and where's the 22 billion?" The atmosphere was electric, charged with anger and a deep sense of betrayal. For many, this was not merely a scandal. It represented the shattering of trust and the collapse of faith in a party they once believed in. The Labour Party, which had long claimed to champion justice, fairness and integrity, now found itself accused of embodying the very corruption it had vowed to combat. But the most disturbing revelation reached beyond the financial scandal. It revealed a culture of control. Multiple MPs disclosed that those who dared question the leadership faced silencing tactics, threats of removal, and stripping of responsibilities. A leaked email from a senior party figure chillingly warned, "Pushing this narrative will have consequences." Another MP recounted being removed from key committees after raising concerns. This was not mere mismanagement. It was authoritarianism cloaked in party rhetoric. As the clock ticked towards midnight, a phrase echoed throughout Westminster, echoed by journalists, MPs, and even former allies: "He's finished." This was no longer merely about policy or leadership style. It was about betrayal on a scale so vast that it had shaken Labour's very foundations. With each new revelation, the question grew louder. If £22 billion could vanish without accountability, what other secrets lay hidden in the shadows? As this political earthquake continues to unfold, the implications of the scandal reveal a government teetering on the brink of collapse. The mass resignation of 43 Labour MPs is not merely an act of protest. It is a symptom of a party that has reached its breaking point under the weight of a staggering £22 billion financial debacle. Insiders have disclosed that whispers of misused public funds and secret deals have circulated for weeks. But what makes this moment particularly shocking is the sheer number of MPs now distancing themselves from Starmer's leadership. This rebellion extends far beyond Labour's backbenches. It has enveloped the party's core, drawing in shadow ministers, strategists, and close allies who once stood resolutely by him. This is not just a parliamentary crisis. It is a national upheaval. Starmer's every move is under intense scrutiny, every word analyzed for signs of desperation, and every promise met with skepticism. As public anger swells, protests erupt in cities across the country. Opposition leaders seize the moment, pushing the narrative that Labour is unfit to lead. The perception of betrayal runs deep, and even the party's most loyal supporters begin to question whether they have been misled all along. The sheer magnitude of the scandal has birthed a narrative of catastrophic mismanagement, one that Starmer and his team seem powerless to reshape. The political battlefield has shifted dramatically. Starmer, once seen as a steady hand capable of restoring order, now grapples with the crumbling of his leadership. Rumors of impending defections swirl around him like a storm. The fear coursing through Labour's ranks is palpable. MPs privately confess they no longer believe the party can recover before the next general election, while others openly discuss the possibility of a complete leadership overhaul. The political landscape is being redrawn before our eyes. With Britain already grappling with economic strain and rising living costs, the revelation of billions lost in questionable transactions feels like a profound act of betrayal. Families struggling to make ends meet are confronted with leaders accused of squandering vast sums that could have transformed healthcare, education, and housing. The outrage of ordinary citizens fuels the collapse, amplifying the rebellion within Labour and intensifying calls for Starmer's resignation. As the storm swells, the clock is ticking. The question haunting Westminster is no longer whether Keir Starmer can survive this scandal, but whether Labour as a party can endure the fallout from such monumental betrayal. Britain is watching. The world is watching. And with each passing moment, the pressure mounts.